Hello everybody, welcome back to a new video. Today I want to talk about forced bass sounds, and somebody sent me a track with a very different bass sound. It has some cool things in there which we're going to discuss, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so the track that I was being sent, I'm going to leave a link for it in the description. It's a really cool track, but I unfortunately don't remember the name of it. As of right now, I have to look at the actual comment again. That's because of the way I record things when I do these things. I record desktop audio, so it doesn't really copy over the name. I should probably remember to do that for later tutorials. But with that being said, here's the track that somebody sent to me, and it sounds like this. Now notice how the bass has a lot more stuff going on in here than in its sub bass. As you can see, if you look at the spectrum, you can basically see the first three harmonics going up in volume, as opposed to normally where the sub bass would be the highest harmonic, and then you would have the second harmonic being slightly lower and the third being even lower than that. But in this case it's the other way around, so that was fairly interesting. I'm gonna let you look at it again so you can see. You can see how this is lower, this is a bit higher, and then the highest one is over there. So yeah, here's my recreation. It's not perfect, but the idea is there. So let's actually go over the patch here. I should probably turn on the processing again. We did do some other things here with the processing. Now sounds like this, a little bit beefier. Might have to turn it down a little bit. So what's actually going on here, that I actually converted this to a patch that I'm going to put inside the preset pack that I'm working on. So there's a lot of things you should probably ignore, like the second oscillator, and all the effects are going to be turned off because that's what this processing here was doing. So yeah, I just imported that into the patch itself. So the actual patch itself would still sound pretty similar here, and that's because the main focus is this waveform here, as well as the way we filter, as we're using a little bit of a steeper filter than normal. Normally I like to use the 12 dB per octave filter. So let's actually look at this waveform here. And what you can see is that I basically inverted the volume of these three harmonics down below here, which creates this very cool waveform, and that creates that kind of darker feeling for some reason. And it's not because of the lack of the sub, but I think because altogether we're adding a lot more energy to the lower mid-range, or the just above the sub, and therefore it kind of gets a little bit of a darker feeling. Even though the sub is lower, it does still sound like a very dark bass line that way. And so that's the first thing that's happening, and then it's going through the filter. Now the filter is just being modulated by the single LFO here. This is the shape for it if you want to copy that. And yeah, that's the main sound, and without any processing, just this oscillator going through the filter, it sounds like this. So it's already fairly close. You kind of have that feeling of that higher harmonic already kind of sitting there, but it really comes up once we start both saturating as well as compressing it a little bit more. You can really hear that higher tone being played now, especially when these hops occur here to a higher note. You can really hear that it's not the main sub bass that you're here shifting, but an actual higher harmonic there. So that's fairly cool. And the processing, you can also copy that if you want. This is just an OTT, so if you don't have Ableton, you can also use the OTT plugin for that. And this simple saturator with analog clip turned on, which is a fairly soft saturation setting, if you want to copy that as well. And it just has a little bit of gain there. So that's what you would need to copy if you want to copy over this specific thing. One last thing I wanted to show you is that this patch is actually played in a very low register. So the track of the key of the track is actually B. And normally when you would have a B bassline, you would probably want to play it an octave higher. But that has that very, almost like a happy feeling to it. The higher frequencies helps there. Even this is also a cool sound, but what happened here is that he basically played it below the level where the sub bass is kind of noticeable in your with your normal like headphones or something like that. So that the sub bass is basically cut off by that, and therefore the two harmonics kind of make it sound again a little bit darker because they're closer together than they would normally be, because of that lower pitch. So that's how the final sound gets that texture, is by playing it a little bit lower than normal. Normally I like to have my bass lines between, I don't know, E0 and A#0, this region here. So you can see it's a little bit lower than what I would usually do, and probably what's normal here. So that makes sure that the second and the third harmonic stand out a little bit more because of the fact that the sub bass isn't really there. So yeah, that's it. A really different sound, and actually a cool trick to explore, kind of pitching your bass lower than it should be, to get those harmonics out of there. So that's another sound somebody requested. If you have any sounds that you want to request, then feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you're new here, feel free to subscribe. I do daily videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.